Last time I talked to you about the colors of the horsemen of the apocalypse, the white, red, black, and green. And I was talking about how all of the flags that Islam conquered under were all of those colors and still are on all of the flags of today, including the one that's in Afghanistan right now. It has all four of those colors in it. They also have a white flag that they use, and the other real evil group has a black flag that they use. But I don't know if you're aware of what just happened with Glenn Beck. Glenn Beck had sent some airliners over there that they rented, and I was listening to him speaking this morning, and he was talking about how that it was the State Department that kept the planes from taking off from the airport in Kabul. Anyway, I just wanted to inform you about what Glenn Beck said and what has been happening as he reported this on The Blaze, his news agency. So one of the titles of one of the articles is "Furious Democrat Rips into Biden Administration for Delay and Inaction on Getting Americans Out of Afghanistan." This was by Carlos Garcia, September 6th, 2021. It says, a Democrat U.S. Senator said he was furious at the Biden administration over the government's delay and inaction over efforts to get stranded Americans out of Afghanistan. Senator Dick Blumenthal, Democrat, Connecticut, released a statement expressing his frustration and anger on Monday. "I have been deeply frustrated, even furious, at our government's delay and inaction," said Blumenthal, who sits on the Senate Armed Services Committee. "There will be plenty of time to seek accountability for the inexcusable bureaucratic red tape that stranded so many of our Afghan allies. For now, my singular focus remains getting these planes in the air and safely to our air base in Doha, where they have already been cleared to land," he said. "I expect the White House and State Department to do everything in their power, absolutely everything, to make this happen," Blumenthal concluded. "These are American citizens and Afghans who risked everything for our country. We cannot leave them behind." Republican Representative Michael McCall said on Fox News Sunday that there were Americans being held hostage by the Taliban at an airport outside of Kabul. "In fact, we have 6 airplanes at Mazar-e-Sharif Airport, 6 airplanes with American citizens on them as I speak. Also with these interpreters, and the Taliban is holding them hostage for demands right now," said McCall. Now, Glenn Beck had another part of that story that he said it was not the Taliban that was keeping them from taking off. It was the State Department of our government. I'll read you that article in a minute. But President Joe Biden has been excoriated by critics over the disastrous military withdrawal and evacuation from Afghanistan. The debacle has hit Biden squarely in the polls, many of which show a steep drop in approval from Americans. On Friday, Republican Representative Markwayne Mullin of Oklahoma accused the State Department of thwarting his mission to save Americans from Afghanistan. He went on to say that he was personally in contact with many Americans who were stranded in Afghanistan and were desperate to get out. The Biden administration has estimated that between 100 and 200 American citizens who wanted to leave Afghanistan remained in the Taliban-controlled country, but critics are skeptical that the actual count may be much higher. Now let me go to the article on The Blaze where Glenn Beck tells what really happened there. And this was by Phil Shiver, September 7th, 2021. Biden administration stopped planes chartered by Glenn Beck charity from taking off, handed manifest over to Taliban. They were told to go back into the airport and hand everything in to the Taliban. The U.S. State Department is responsible for interfering with the departure of several planes holding American citizens and Afghan nationals at the Mazar-e-Sharif airport. Blaze TV host Glenn Beck reported on air during his radio show Tuesday. The planes, which held at least 100 American citizens and 1,000 Afghan nationals, were chartered by Mercury One and the Nazarene Fund, a charity founded by Beck, aimed at facilitating evacuations from Afghanistan amid the U.S. military's withdrawal and the Taliban's takeover of the country. Over the weekend, news broke that multiple planes had been prevented from taking off after the Taliban refused to grant permission for the departure. But according to Beck, it wasn't the Taliban that initially stopped the planes from exiting the country. Rather, it was the State Department that refused to grant landing clearance to the planes, preventing them from departing. The department allegedly called off the flights at the last minute, declining to approve the manifest. He added that U.S. officials went on to hand over the manifest to the Taliban. They were on the plane, they were on the tarmac, they were in the seats and ready to go before State Department officials intervened and deboarded the plane, Beck explained Tuesday morning on his radio show. They were told to go back into the airport and hand everything in to the Taliban. You know, this same thing happened on 9/11 when the towers were attacked. They had people in the towers that had, when they were leaving their offices and they were trying to escape and flee and go down the elevator shaft and, go down the staircase, they had people down there telling them, go back up to your offices, everything is fine, go back up. And this is the same type of thing they're doing here. They were told to go back into the airport and hand everything in to the Taliban. They were dismissed from the airport while the State Department works this out with the Taliban, he continued, noting that many of the passengers are now waiting things out in safe houses, but not all. And Glenn Beck made the point that there's not really any safe houses there. There's really not any place for them to be. This was like the State Department sending up flares saying to the Taliban, hey, look over here, he added later. The radio personality insisted that his team is working tirelessly to complete its mission despite the recent setback. We had all of it, he said on the radio. We'll have to go back and get the people now for those planes. But as soon as we get the green light, those people will be able to go back on those planes. And if there's one missing, I swear to you, we have also 8 to 10 other planes that are ready to fly out if the State Department will just let us be. Can you imagine that the Biden administration is actually preventing the planes from departing? And the people were already on the plane in their seats ready to take off on the tarmac. The Blaze reached out to the State Department with regard to the allegations. In response, a department representative pointed to remarks made Tuesday by Secretary of State Blinken at a press conference in Doha, Qatar. We're working around the clock with NGOs, with members of Congress and advocacy groups, providing any and all information and doing all we can to clear any roadblocks that they've identified to make sure that charter flights carrying Americans or others to whom we have a special responsibility can depart Afghanistan safely, Blinken insisted at the conference. We've also been engaged with the Taliban on this topic, including in recent hours, he added. They've said that they will let people with travel documents freely depart. We will hold them to that. Beck noted that several members of Congress, including Republican Senators Ted Cruz of Texas, Marsha Blackburn, Tennessee, and Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal, Connecticut, were directly involved in the evacuation efforts and were furiously urging the State Department not to block the flights. Cruz confirmed to the Blaze on Tuesday that his office has been coordinating with the Nazarene Fund and other NGOs on evacuations, and that the Biden administration has been obstructing efforts. One more act of high crimes, misdemeanors, and treason, I would say. I'm proud of that critically important work, but Biden-Harris officials can't even get out of their own way. Now their incompetence has created the entirely predictable risk of a hostage crisis, the senator said. In response to inquiries about the situation, the State Department has effectively thrown up its hands and conceded that there's not much it can do. Really? You're the most powerful department on earth, practically. I mean, this is crazy. We do not have personnel on the ground. We do not have air assets in the country. We do not control the airspace, whether over Afghanistan or elsewhere in the region, a State Department spokesman told the Blaze on Monday. But Beck took issue with that claim as well, telling the Blaze that its statement, the department is knowingly misleading the American people. He said that while the State Department doesn't control the airspace anymore, it does have control over whether commercial planes take off and land in approved locations. The Blaze reached out to Mercury One regarding Beck's recent comments, and the organization responded, although Glenn Beck is a political commentator, Mercury One and the Nazarene Fund are not political organizations, and sometimes the things Glenn says on the radio do not represent the charities. Well, the point being is he's trying to get these people out that want out, and they were all aboard the planes ready to take off, and the State Department of the Biden administration said no. Get off the planes, go back to where you live. We're not letting you take off. So now guess what's happening? Now we have the Blaze also reporting this, that President Biden tells 11 ex-Trump officials to resign from military advisory boards. Carlos Garcia wrote this article September 8th, 2021. And this one says President Joe Biden told 11 appointees from the Trump era that they must resign from military academy advisory boards or be fired. And Kellyanne Conway immediately fired off a scathing response. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki confirmed on Wednesday that they had been served notice to resign or be fired. The president's objective is what any president's objective is, to ensure you have nominees and people serving on these boards who are qualified to serve on them and who are aligned with your values or lack of. And so, yes, that was an ask that was made, Psaki told reporters at a media briefing. Among the more prominent members told to resign or be fired were Kellyanne Conway, former senior counselor to the president, former White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer, and former National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster. Let's put this in perspective here. The State Department is not only helped boggle all of the things that happened with Afghanistan, and the blood of 13 military members are on their hands, and they've been negotiating with the terrorists, and now they're demanding that the former National Security Advisor leaves or is fired, and they have just provided the enemy with $85 billion worth of military equipment. And they're asking the former National Security Advisor to leave his post because obviously they're setting something up. And I frankly wonder if the January 6th events were not just a trial run for something else that they've got planned with those weapons. I'm just saying, that's my opinion, that's my thought in my own head. Conway published a fiery response saying that she would not resign. 3 former directors of presidential personnel informed me that this request is a break from presidential norms, said Conway in her statement. It certainly seems petty and political, if not personal. The result is that faithful and willing public servants will be discouraged or thwarted from service. Our service academies will risk being further politicized and polarized, she added. Your decision is disappointing but understandable given the need to distract from a news cycle that has you mired in multiple self-inflicted crises and plummeting poll numbers, Conway continued, including a rise in new COVID cases, a dismal jobs report, inflation, record amount of drugs coming across the southern border, and of course, the chaotic and deadly withdrawal from Afghanistan that has left hundreds of Americans, thousands of Afghanistan allies stranded under the Taliban rule. And might I add to that, ridiculously high gas prices that are just way beyond, they're double what they were when Trump was president. We had prices below $3 a gallon. Now they're up at $5 a gallon, $4.50. I mean, it's absurd. She went on to reference the 13 U.S. service members that died in a terror attack in Afghanistan before concluding. I'm not resigning, said Conway, but you should. No, they don't get the right to resign. You commit high crimes, misdemeanors, and treason, you're taken into custody by the high-ranking military of this country. Other advisors protested in their response to the request from the Biden administration. Frankly, I find this whole act unconscionable and not at all the spirit by which this administration promised to govern, responded Megan Mobbs. It is tragic that this great institution is now being subjected to and hijacked by partisan action that serves no purpose and no greater good. Russell Voigt said simply, no, it's a 3-year term. Here's a recent report on Biden's presidential approval rating.
Plunge in President Biden's approval rating. It's down to 44%, with 51% of Americans disapproving of his job performance.
And then this report in Newsweek says in the title, as Biden popularity falls, Democrats fear losing Senate, 30 to 50 House seats. Yeah, well, I think it's going to be a lot worse than that. And then there's this. Biden repeatedly implies he's not in charge of where he can take questions from the press. Biden defied his handlers and didn't immediately exit the room. However, the moment quickly reminded viewers that Biden has often suggested other people set the rules and dictate what he is allowed to do. In recent memory, Biden has said, I'm not supposed to take any questions, admitted he was instructed to call on specific reporters, declared, they gave me a list of people I'm going to call on, told reporters he would get in trouble if he didn't follow orders, and even said, I'd be happy to take questions if that's what I'm supposed to do. And by the way, the flags that were displayed for the 13 that were killed in Afghanistan of our military, those flags were vandalized yesterday evening, I believe it was, and they're trying to find out who desecrated the flags. You're going to have to bring the Boy Scouts in to dispose of those flags the way that is technically correct. And incidentally, the backlash of some of the parents of the soldiers that were killed in Afghanistan, the 13 of our military people, this mother has really been very vocal, and I told you that they took down her Facebook page and her Instagram page so she couldn't express any feelings against Joe Biden. But here's what she said in this. She told him, you are not the president of the United States of America, Biden. Cheating isn't winning. She wrote on Facebook, "You are no leader of any kind. You are a weak human being and a traitor." And I guess maybe those were the comments that they took her Facebook page away. She later wrote that the day after burying her son, she plans to drive her blue Toyota Tundra from Norco, California, to the White House to demand Biden's resignation. She encouraged others to join. "It's a long drive, but worth it," she wrote. "It's time the lions awaken and show their numbers. It's time we take back our country. If we don't fight to save our country, then nobody will, and she will fall." She also said that she hopes Trump will come to her son's funeral later this month. Richard Herrera, whose daughter, Marine Corps Sergeant Nicole Gee, 23, died in the attack, said he had no interest in hearing from Biden. "He's not invited to the funeral. If he comes, I won't let him in the door," Herrera said. "I don't even really want to talk to anyone in his administration. There's blood on his hands. I'm trying to keep it not political, but I can't. You can't not do that. That's what got my daughter killed." And those statements were from the Washington Post, with the article titled, "Trump Reaches Out to Families of Killed Service Members." And of course, he sees an opportunity there to comfort the families when the current president is made the families very angry. So now that we know, based on the other videos that I did, and I showed you all of the things with the person who used to be president over Biden when he was VP, we have to wonder if he's the one that once again left all the weapons there on purpose so that they could create the Islamic Caliphate. And they know exactly what they're doing. They deliberately left $85 billion worth of equipment for them to take hold of, which is, there's no excuse for that. I mean, we're talking Humvees, Black Hawk helicopters, machine guns, grenades, bombs, everything, you name it, that can be used against anyone, any country, even this country. And here we are coming up upon 9/11, and these weapons are in the hands of the very people that, we had the 9/11 events that led to us going to war over there for 20 years. So here we are right in the midst of the Feast of Trumpets. And of course, we're watching and waiting for that last trump to blow so we can hear the Lord's voice calling us to come hither and to come be with him in the glory cloud, and for the dead to be raised. And I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but the Jewish people have always believed and always gone to the graves of their loved ones on the eve of Rosh Hashanah, on the Feast of Trumpets. The night before, they put a stone on their grave and everything, because they've always said that the resurrection of the dead would happen at this particular holiday. So there's many things that we are looking forward to seeing the Lord and leaving this evil administration behind. Why they are not arresting this group of people that are in charge, that are stopping Americans from coming back home, is there's just no excuse. There's no excuse for the weapons being in the hands of those terrorists. So you're not going to take the military in there to try to capture those weapons and get them back. You're going to leave them there for them to take over. And listen to what Reuters.com reported about the weapons. A video showed the advancing insurgents inspecting long lines of vehicles and opening crates of new firearms, communications gear, and even military drones. Everything that hasn't been destroyed is the Taliban's now. Another official said that while there were no definitive numbers yet, the current intelligence assessment was that the Taliban are believed to control more than 2,000 armored vehicles, including U.S. Humvees, and up to 40 aircraft, potentially including UH-60 Black Hawks, Scout attack helicopters, and Scan Eagle military drones. We have already seen the fighters armed with U.S.-made weapons they seized from the Afghan forces. This poses a significant threat to the United States and our allies. Really? Oh my gosh, what's wrong with these people? And why aren't they doing something to destroy those weapons? So let's look at a couple scriptures about weapons. 2 Corinthians 10 verse 3 says, "For though we walk in the flesh, we do not war after the flesh. For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds, casting down imaginations and every high thing that exalteth itself against the knowledge of God, and bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Messiah, and having in a readiness to revenge all disobedience when your obedience is fulfilled." Jeremiah 50:25 states, "The Lord hath opened his armory, and hath brought forth the weapons of his indignation. For this is the work of the Lord God of hosts in the land of the Chaldeans. Come against her from the utmost border. Open her storehouses, cast her up as heaps, and destroy her utterly. Let nothing of her be left. Slay all her bullocks. Let them go down to the slaughter. Woe unto them, for their day is come, the time of their visitation. The voice of them that flee and escape out of the land of Babylon, to declare in Zion the vengeance of the Lord our God, the vengeance of his temple. Call together the archers against Babylon, all ye that bend the bow. Camp against it round about, let none thereof escape. Recompense her according to her work, according to all that she hath done. Do unto her, for she hath been proud against the Lord, against the Holy One of Israel. Therefore shall her young men fall in the streets, and all her men of war shall be cut off in that day, saith the Lord. Behold, I am against thee, O thou most proud, saith the Lord God of hosts. For thy day is come, the time that I will visit thee. And the most proud shall stumble and fall, and none shall raise him up. And I will kindle a fire in his cities, and it shall devour all round about him. Thus said the Lord of hosts, the children of Israel and the children of Judah were oppressed together, and all that took them captives held them fast. They refused to let them go. Their Redeemer is strong. The Lord of hosts is his name. He shall thoroughly plead their cause, that he may give rest to the land and disquiet the inhabitants of Babylon. A sword is upon the Chaldeans, saith the Lord, and upon the inhabitants of Babylon, and upon her princes, and upon her wise men. A sword is upon the liars, and they shall dote. A sword is upon her mighty men, and they shall be dismayed. A sword is upon their horses, and upon their chariots, and upon all the mingled people that are in the midst of her, and they shall become as women. A sword is upon her treasures, and they shall be robbed. Now you know they're calling this a war chest of weapons that they've been basically given, just like Obama allowed these weapons to be given in Syria when he let all those weapons go into the hands of the enemy is another time. A drought is upon her waters, and they shall be dried up. For it is the land of graven images, and they are mad upon their idols. Therefore the wild beasts of the desert with the wild beasts of the islands shall dwell there, and the owls shall dwell therein. And it shall be no more inhabited forever, neither shall it be dwelt in from generation to generation, as God overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah, and the neighbor cities thereof, saith the Lord. So shall no man abide there, neither shall any son of man dwell therein. Behold, a people shall come from the north, and a great nation, and many kings shall be raised up from the coasts of the earth. They shall hold the bow and the lance. They are cruel and will not show mercy. Their voice shall roar like the sea, and they shall ride upon horses, every one put in array like a man to the battle against thee, O daughter of Babylon. The king of Babylon hath heard the report of them, and his hands waxed feeble. Anguish took hold of him in pangs as of a woman in travail. Behold, he shall come up like a lion from the swelling of Jordan unto the habitation of the strong. But I will make them suddenly run away from her. And who is a chosen man that I might appoint over her? For who is like me, and who will appoint me the time? And who is that shepherd that will stand before me? Therefore, hear ye the counsel of the Lord that he hath taken against Babylon, and his purposes that he hath purposed against the land of the Chaldeans. Surely the least of the flock shall draw them out. Surely he shall make their habitation desolate with them. At the noise of the taking of Babylon, the earth is moved, and the cry is heard among the nations. So the moral of the story is that God's weapons of indignation are going to be far worse than anything that the wicked have experienced. And his day of judgment is coming, the time of the tribulation. And of course, like Pastor Mark Bilt said, that we are starting the Shemitah year, and that's where they give the land the rest for 7 years. And he basically said that the tribulation would have to start at the beginning of one of the Shemitah years. So we're just now entering it, and the farmers are not going to be planting or growing any crops in Israel for an entire year. And right now, there are farms in the Judean wilderness, the Aragoat farm, where they are threatening, since Joe Biden got together with Naftali Bennett, now they're threatening to destroy the vineyards and the olive trees that are producing fruit and bulldoze those. To me, this is all just an attempt of what they did before in Gush Katif, where they took away the Jews' greenhouses, where they provided food for all kinds of countries in Europe. And it's just another destruction of the food source that they're attempting. And we need to be praying that God will protect those vineyards and protect those olive trees. And those vineyards and olive trees are 6 years old, so now producing the fruit. And if that fruit is destroyed, what's it going to gain? The government of Israel. And just as they're working to take away the farmers' farmland and their cattle, and we all know that it's all about the climate change business, about that they don't like the cows emitting fumes, carbons, and to me, trying to destroy as many of the crops worldwide as they can. It's something that we need to be praying against, and that God's wrath is on its way, his indignation, and he doesn't fight with weapons made by man. He's coming with something far greater, far more dangerous, far more scary and terrifying than those fighters will ever experience. And their day is coming, and God is in control of all of it. So let's just keep our eyes looking for the Lord Jesus during this time of the high holy days. And I'm grateful that we're in the Feast of Trumpets. It's very strange that the very day that my mom fell in the garage and went to the hospital is the very day on which Rosh Hashanah, Feast of Trumpets, landed. The first full day being September 7th. So let's just keep looking for the Lord, praying for his appearing, because we are ready to leave and go be with our bridegroom in the glory cloud. And I can't wait to be reunited with my family members, my mom and my grandmother particularly, and the resurrection rapture event. I hope you're having a blessed time of the Feast of Trumpets. So anyway, I just wanted to report on a couple of these recent events that have been taking place. And we know that we're looking for the Lord's arrival and his appearing because it is the Feast of Trumpets. I have not gone to look to see if the new moon was out there, which I do usually photograph that every year. But I'll try to go out and look for it to see if I see the sliver tonight, and I'll film it if I can. Just really want to thank you for blessing me with the people that did come to help me. God bless you, and I will talk to you soon.